go. Hi, this is Jonathan Tung here for Game Distiller Productions, and today I'm here with voice actor J. Michael Tatum. Hi. Now, in case you guys haven't heard of Mr. Tatum before, he is better known as the voice of Sir Hammerlock in Borderlands 2, which, if I remember correctly, just recently came out on the PlayStation Vita. So if any of you guys haven't got a chance to buy the PS Vita 2000 model, now will be a good time. Other than that, he's done a lot of voices in anime for Funimation. One of his more notable roles being, well, you guessed it, Sebastian Michaelis in Black Butler. Now, Mr. Tatum, I'd like to thank you for taking some of your time off today to talk with me. I have here a couple of questions here collected from some of my fellow coworkers and associates at Game Distiller Productions, as well as a couple of fan-selected questions I have happened to have curated. So, hope you don't mind about that. So, let's start with the very first question I have here. Now, I know that normally you usually do voices for anime and stuff over at Funimation Productions. Not yet. Your voice role of Sir Hammerlock in Borderlands 2 seems to be your first foray into video games, if I'm not mistaken, unless if I've happened to forgot your voice roles in Comic Jumper and whatnot. So maybe you could tell me what's like doing voiceovers in a video game compared to like other forms of traditional media such as anime, TV, and movies.
Right. It's really cool actually. I've done a few video games before Borderlands 2, but nothing as big, nothing the size of Borderlands 2, where Sir Hammerlock is such a huge character. I mean, he never shuts up, which is great. As a voice actor, you love characters that don't shut up because that means more time in the booth, which is always fun. But whereas I've pretty much made my career on anime, which is all dub, which is all, that's pre-existing animation that comes to us from Japan, and we adapt it and then record it. So we're always working with pre-existing animation. And so as an actor, you have to use different techniques they're all part of the same bag of tricks, I suppose, that any actor would use, but it's very different when you're working with prelay, which is video game stuff, which is that to say they animate around your performance versus a dub, whereas you have to tailor your performance to pre-existing animation. So in a way, it's very freeing. One thing I noticed with Sir Hammerlock is when I walked in the door for my first recording session, I met Anthony and the guys that were working on the show. Anthony, the writer.
Yeah, Anthony Birch. He worked on Hey Ash.
Very, very, very funny man. And he really liked this character that at first was just going to be this little one-off character, as I understood it. The conceptual art they gave me to look at was very different than the final product, as is often the case, in the early stages. And he said something along the lines of, "So we're looking to, kind of." What were his words? He's like, "Are you familiar with Doctor Who at all?" He said, and I just laughed, and I said, "I've totally got this, guys. Don't worry," because I'm a big Doctor Who geek. So it was really, really fun, but I was so used to, at that point, I was so used to doing anime, where you have the animation right there in front of you, and which I find can help guide the performance a great deal, because you're looking at the character, and you see their movements, and you're hearing the soundtrack. All of it's there already, and that can really help kind of place you in the context of where you need to be emotionally for the character. When you're doing prelay, as we did for Borderlands 2, you're recording in a vacuum. You have these wonderful lines that Anthony had written right in front of you, and you may or may not have a picture of what the character is going to look like, but that is it. So it's very liberating, but at the same time, it's a little frightening because you have to make more choices. And of course, the more options you have as an actor, the more likely you are to choose wrong. So, but we had a great fun recording Hammerlock. I think I was so flamboyant, and I'm a very physical actor, very animated, no pun intended, that I tended to, and of course when I was recording out at Okatron, where they did much of the dialogue for the track for Borderlands 2, they can see me, and it's right there on video and everything, and I'm like moving around, and I honestly think they made Hammerlock a bigger character, a bigger player in the game, more of a quest giver in the game than he was originally, because they enjoyed watching me make a jackass of myself in the booth. So it was really a lot of fun. I loved it. I loved doing Sir Hammerlock. I think working on anime prepared me for it, because anime does kind of focus you, dubbing focuses you, but having the freedom to do prelay stuff is really...
Well, this of course leads into my very first fan question from a friend named Martin. He wants to know whether or not Sir Hammerlock might appear in future Borderlands titles, like, Tales from the Borderlands, or maybe Borderlands, the pre-sequel.
Well, I don't really know. I'm an actor, so I'm the last person to know any of those things. That when they call me in, I go in. But I mean, I hope he's a fun character. And I understand that there's a lot of Borderlands fans really like him. So hopefully they'll bring it back. We all love him, that's for sure. Working on him is really, really fun. I know Anthony really likes writing him, and I absolutely adore working with Anthony's dialogue. So any chance to get to rehash stuff with Sir Hammerlock, I would jump at, because I think he's just enormously fun to play.
Okay, that's good to you. Now, another question I have here is something that I've noticed going on lately in the trend world of video games. Lately, there seems to be an increase in anime voice actors making the jump to video games, with the most notable one being everyone knows by now, Troy Baker, who by now has already done voices for like BioShock Infinite, Infamous Second Son, and a ton of other games I could barely even think off the top of my head.
Tons.
Indeed. So what do you usually think about this trend, and do you think that this might keep going in the near future?
I don't know. I hope so, because I think it's really great. Video games are a huge industry, and anime is as well. So getting to be successful in both of them is great for one's career. Troy, of course, is a great example. Or Troy is just fantastically talented. I mean, Troy there's almost nothing the man can't do. I've worked with him on a few things in the past, and he never ever ceases to amaze me. But from my own experience working as an actor who started in anime dubs, that was my first. I mean, I did stage a long time ago, like in another time before I do this now. But voice acting, my career as a voice actor began in dubs. And something I've noticed, and a lot of my colleagues have as well, I think, when you're doing a dub, because you're working with pre-existing animation, you really have to focus your approach. There's only certain methods you can use. You don't have the freedom of, as I was speaking of earlier, of prelay, where you can kind of expect the animators to tailor their approach to your performance. It's the other way around. And so you really have to sort of tighten the reins, and it causes you to, I mean, if you're good at it, it beefs up your acting skills in general, because you're having to breathe life into characters. When I go into dub on an anime, for example, we have very little time. There's no rehearsal. I don't get a script beforehand. Everything is in front of me the moment I get into that script or into that booth to record the first day. And that's how it goes. The industry is so breakneck. There is no time to be prepared. So you just have to kind of learn how to hit the ground running, and you have to familiarize yourself with the sort of tropes that come up in anime that you will normally play. And so all of that adds to your strength as an actor, and you bring that to the table with other sorts of acting where you don't have such restrictions, like with video game recording or commercial recording or whatever. And people, professionals, engineers, and directors are amazed that you can do these things. You're like, oh my God. They're like, oh, I'll never forget the first time I was in a video game. I don't now remember what it was, but they said, it was all prelay, of course, and so they said, well, can you get this line out in less than 3 seconds? And I laughed. I said, yeah, that's easy. 3 seconds is fine. Give me a bookend, great, but I don't have to match flaps. Awesome. And they were absolutely astounded. But because of my experience of timing and having to kind of narrow your performance to kind of fit, and I don't mean narrow performance like emotionally, but like really focus on it, has to hit here, hit here, hit here. You have to stress this word over that word. I mean, you really have to think about the freedoms you don't have as an actor when you're dubbing, and so when you do have those freedoms when you're doing prelay, you're just suddenly realize, oh my God, I can go crazy with this and really amaze these people. And so it's really fun. It doesn't surprise me that a lot of voice actors that are famous for their roles, for succeeding in dubbing, go on to be really, really successful in other voice acting endeavors, because I think dubbing is the hardest kind of voice acting to do.
Does the same thing also happen to apply when you're also dubbing Japanese-made video games? Because I know that right now you might have already finished doing the voiceovers for Tales of Xillia 2, which is coming out later this summer.
With video games, it's a little different. There's a little more leeway. It depends on the property itself, but Often those are actually either made in conjunction with the Japanese, so we're working with some pre-existing animation, but not all of it is done yet, or there is some freedom in terms of they will go back and tailor the animation to the delivery of the actor. It sort of depends. Each one is different, but it's a little easier than doing your traditional anime dub, where everything is already kind of set in stone, as it were. So yeah,
I see. And in addition, usually whenever you do those dubs, most of the time it usually pays off, such as the case when you did the voice for Sebastian in Black Buckler. What do you think? And because of that, you usually get such a positive reception to such a voice, especially when you go to anime conventions, you do that one voice just to please all the fangirls. How do you feel about the community in general because of that?
Oh, I mean, I love it. I can't imagine anyone getting really tired of it. I mean, I go to conventions, and I show up. I get to travel over the world, and there's a bunch of people that I get to meet for the first time, and they love me. And all I have to say is "Hello, yes, my lord," and they just scream, and it's great. It's really, they're undoing years of psychological damage. So I love it. I absolutely love it. It's good for one's self-esteem to, have a bunch of screaming fangirls or fanboys, as the case may be, who all you have to do is say that line or this line, and they just love you. I'm like, oh, thank you. It makes me feel really good about myself.
Well, that's good to hear. So I have another fan, and speaking of which, there is another question I have here from another fan of mine. His name is Jesse. He wants to know what's your favorite character that you've voiced so far in anime and maybe video games in particular.
I never know what to say to that question, because I used to play the favorites game all the time, like, oh, this is my favorite, that's my favorite, but I feel like, and I know I've said this elsewhere, so forgive me if I'm just repeating myself, but I'm a little crazy as an actor, a little psychotic. I think I get very attached to my characters, even if it's just like Soldier A or whatever, who has like one line and then gets shot and dies or something. You get attached to them, or I do. I don't know about anybody else, but I do, and maybe it's a little unhealthy, but they kind of stay in my head, and they become sort of a permanent feature of my psyche thereafter. And so whenever I'm pressed to pick a favorite, I can say, oh, that one, and just, because I want to answer the question, but then later it's like all those characters will come out in my head and be like, really, why didn't you pick me? So I try to avoid that. So I try to, as an actor, I think my favorite is whatever I happen to be working on at the time. Because for me, the experience of acting and the appeal is getting to sort of get outside of yourself and put yourself in someone else's shoes, as it were, that normally and have experiences you wouldn't normally be able to have, like playing a villain, for example. Oh, it's so wonderful playing villains, because I would never be that big of a jerk in real life. I just don't have it in me. But when you can play them, it's therapeutic. So you can get it out of your system without actually being a villain. It's wonderful, you see. It's getting to stretch your legs without moral consequences, I guess, most of the time anyway. But what's really appealing to me about it is, though that's the goal, is to kind of get outside of yourself. You often find that, well, no, that's already in me somewhere. You end up finding who you really are by playing these characters. And so every little character I play has a piece of me, and so on and so forth, and vice versa, I should say, because I walk away going, wow, I didn't know that I could relate so much to that particular character, but it got really easy there. And so I learn a lot about my own, inner world, which surprises me often. I'll sit down to play a character and be very intimidated by him. I can't get my head around his thought process. I have no idea, so let's just do this. But as we get going, I suddenly realize, wow, no, I get it. I get this guy. It kind of gives me, acting has gotten me to a place where, at least emotionally and psychologically, I feel at home just about anywhere in the world now because of it. There's very few people I can't relate to on some level. So that's what I love about acting. And it makes it very difficult to choose a favorite, because all these characters have something to recommend them, I think. That's why they have such a following as it is. So, yeah, I can't pick a favorite. They'd all get mad at me.
Finally, do you have any last words to say before we sign off for today?
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure. I love to talk your ear off. So I apologize if I ramble. I do that a lot. But yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
And anything for our fans?
Thank you guys for letting me do this for a living. Really, seriously, I love to. This is like my view on it is, without you guys, I'm just a crazy guy in a padded room making voices. So thank you for making my life wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate that too. It was nice talking with you, Matt. Damn it, I meant J. Michael.
I'll take Matt. We'll take Matt. It's a good name.
Yeah, it was just for a second I accidentally said Matt because I thought your name was Matthew. Damn it, I almost said Matthew Mercer. What can I say?
I've had some. Hey, I don't mind. Hey, I'll take Matthew Mercer. I'll be Matthew Mercer. I don't
What
know
can
if
I say?
I don't know if I can be as good as him, but
Oh, I kid. I'm Jonathan Tung, and I'm signing off.